Alright, so this is Lumectra by Power A. I don't know if that's like the brand of LED that they're using for this particular controller. It is a fully wireless, multiple zone RGB. It's got motion controls, it's rechargeable, and it does have mappable buttons on the back. On this side you just have a blue variation of the lighting scheme. This side is a red variation. You know, you got some product information here on the bottom. And the interesting things obviously here on the back. Thousands of color combinations, huh? Multiple different zones for lighting. It looks like each side of the controller can be separated in terms of what you want them to be in terms of color. You've got two different lighting zones here for the face buttons and the main joystick, as well as the D-pad and secondary joystick. 3 fun lighting modes. This does work with the Switch OLED, the Nintendo Switch itself, and the Switch Lite. $60 whopping dollars. $60 for this guy, for a Power A controller. Whether or not that's going to be worth it, we will see. We'll open the box here. It looks like it's going to be fairly standard fare in terms of what's in the box. Ooh, okay, we got the USB-C wire is kind of just shoved here in the back like this, so it fell out. But, yeah, there's the controller itself. It's got a good heft to it, that I can say. You have your quick start guide thing here, and it's one of those fold-out pamphlets. I hate these. I hate these so much. Unfortunately, this is basically what most electronic or consumer electronics use, are these like roadmap fucking things. But yeah, it's a Switch controller. I'm sure we will figure it out. But if I need to, I can read these over and yeah, go from there. So let's get the controller out of its plastic housing here. Yeah, it's got a little bit of battery. That's pretty cool. It does have a bit of a heft to it. It's a little weighty. And here's the back. It's got a nice textured surface here on the back, on both sides. We have AGL and AGR, so right and left. Okay, so this right here, this is your program button, and this, I'm going to assume, controls the LEDs because it says LED. Initial feeling in terms of face buttons feel okay, which was important because that's something that Power A, in my opinion, has always sucked at. The face buttons have always been horrible. These feel alright. They don't feel super luxurious. They don't feel super impressive. They're okay. They feel fine. Joysticks feel pretty good. They're in terms of tension, they're pretty loose. But I've been playing with a lot of Hall effect sensors, so that might be my bias towards Hall effect sensors being superior. D-pad feels, yeah, it's pretty mushy. I have a feeling I'm going to be misinputting quite badly. You can almost press the whole thing down. It does feel like there might be, yeah, I think there is a rubber ball, or a plastic ball rather, in the center of the D-pad. So it might keep you from inputting the wrong things. You got your plus and minus buttons here on the face. They feel like cheap plastic crappy plus and minus buttons. Turning it over, looking at the back here. You get to yeah, here, love it. Extraordinarily glossy. That is going to be a dust and fingerprint nightmare. Yikes. Got your sync button here. You got your USB-C here. Good thing, I'm glad it uses USB-C. Pretty much every controller I have at this point uses USB-C. And you got your triggers, which are not analog. These are digital. But this is a Switch-only controller. This cannot be used on PC, as far as I'm aware. I mean, you could probably connect it through Bluetooth, but that's not its intended purpose. And it's got, yeah, you got your bumpers. Everything feels pretty good back here. These have a really nice, satisfying click to them. And the bumpers themselves, or the triggers rather, those are just digital triggers. But yeah, this is the controller. I'm going to spend some time with this guy, get it hooked up, show some gameplay using this controller, check back with you guys in a couple days, let you know what I think of it. So I'm currently trying to figure out how to change the color scheme on this controller. Lumectra LED controls. So I'm assuming that means hold this button back here for 3 seconds. It's going to flash maybe. And then we're going to use all of those buttons. They do a lot. There's a lot of things they do. This is going to take some trial and error, I think. So I did eventually figure out how to use the Lumectra system that this controller comes installed with. It's actually fairly intuitive, and it makes a little bit more sense once you spend some time with it, as most things probably do. So you simply hold the LED button on the back down for 3 seconds. The controller will flash, like so. That is indicating that you are in the Lumectra mode. So I'm actually going to turn these lights off so I can show you guys just a little bit better what I'm doing here. As you hit right on the D-pad here, you'll see the different sections actually flash. And each section that is flashing as I'm hitting right is the section that you have selected to edit. So I don't really want to mess with this particular one. There are 2 profiles that the controller stores. So you can have 2 separate profiles. If you have one lighting scheme that you really like and you don't want to mess it up, you can switch over to the other lighting scheme. So I'm going to quickly walk through how I set this up. So each button on this controller does a different feature in terms of the LED system once you have it activated, right? So you got this button, the right bumper here, actually sets all sections to a singular color. So it's a good starting point. So I'm gonna start with purple here. That's pretty purple. So we got purple, right? Now I want to then change the other sections rather, to something different. So I would do that by hitting right on the D-pad and selecting the different sections. Now each one of these face buttons is a corresponding color. Like you have your oranges, or your yellows rather. You have reds on B. You've got greens on A and blues on X. So I'm actually going to try to go with a darker blue for these other 2 sections here. Now, I don't know how well that's coming through, but like the bottom half of the controller is a dark blue and the top half is like a purple color. And then to save that, you're just going to hold that LED button down. It'll flash. Now just by tapping the LED button twice in quick succession, you can swap between the 2 different profiles. So if, like, say this is a controller that you and somebody share, and you like a color scheme that they don't particularly find appealing, you can each individually have your own color scheme. Or, in that scenario that I had laid out before, if you have a color scheme, like this one here that I like, that I tried to make it look like the Gathering Hall colors, I didn't want to lose it. So, being able to have this additional profile that I can then go and change to whatever I want is also awesome. Something else that I would like to point out about this particular system, the controller does not need to be connected to the console to edit these settings. You can simply just hold that down to wake the controller up, the controller will go into that mode, and you're off to the races right off the bat. Hey, start. I haven't played much of this game. I really should. Alright. Clearly, new game. Normal difficulty, because sure. Metroid Prime. With this wonderful Power A controller. Let's see what happens, shall we? I do like the colors. The colors are pretty cool. Yeah. But I have a feeling that the colors are just a gimmick, and that's all the controller has going for it. We'll see, though. We're going to play many different types of games, not just Metroid Prime. We're going to play some 2D games. We're going to play some twin-stick shooters. But to get the full test of these joysticks, I felt a first-person shooter was necessary. And what better to test out a first-person shooter than Metroid Prime? Alright, so initial latency is pretty good. There's a little bit of input latency. You can also potentially use this to test out the motion controls. I don't know, does this game have motion control aiming? Alright, here we go. Motion controls. Okay. I mean, yeah, they're alright, dude. They're perfectly fine. Perfectly, acceptable. Oh shit, there's like a invisible barrier there. I just feel like this is so much more stable, dude. Having two joystick control like this. And nobody want to mess with Samus when she got the charge beam. Yeah, first impressions. It's a pretty standard controller. It's alright. We're going to play some more games. Try out some different genres. I have spent a lot of time playing this game. With this, this controller here. It's the 8-Bit Dude Pro 2. Still, to this day, my go-to controller. Yeah, I'm not loving the D-pad. Without question, that is a weak point on this controller. It's really spongy. Like, unsatisfying and spongy. Also, if you have to use the home and minus and plus buttons for a game like this, then they become kind of annoying because they feel like crap. Oh yeah. That was not the controller's fault. I'm just bad at games. This controller's alright. It's not great. It's not horrible. It's just a controller. It would not be the first one I went for, though. Without question. I can play this game for hours. I love this game. This controller is not hurting my enjoyment of this game whatsoever. I also find myself switching back and forth between the joystick and the D-pad quite a lot. That is because I do not like this D-pad. I don't like this D-pad at all. We're going to try Tetris. That's going to really tell me if this D-pad is accurate or not. But as I stand right now, not a fan of the D-pad. Joysticks are nice. They're pretty nice, man. I like them quite a bit. They feel accurate. They feel nice. They snap. They have a good snap to them. No complaints about the joysticks. Longevity, I don't know. If they eventually fail, I'll make an update video, but they feel nice initially. Face buttons actually are not horrible. So let's talk about this controller versus some other controllers. You know, so at the end of the day, what's the verdict? You know, what do I think about this controller here? I mean, I've been using this controller exclusively on stream for the last several nights, and I've got to say, I don't hate it. But I can't recommend it. The build quality is better than anything PowerA I've ever used or owned. Latency between the controller and the console is negligible or just not even noticeable at all, which I was really able to test out with Smash Brothers. I didn't run into any problems with my inputs being dropped or what have, which I have had issues with in the past with other controllers. It features some pretty cool LED RGB features with multiple profiles. You know, there are so many good things about this controller, and yet I can't recommend it. Why? Well, it really comes down to two things. The D-pad, and simply the value of what you're getting when you buy this controller. This controller is designed strictly for use on Nintendo Switch, and is asking nearly the same amount as Nintendo's own Pro controller. $60 is a lot of money. And, you know, with the competitive space that this controller sits in, there just isn't room for a controller that doesn't do anything special while also asking for a higher price. It feels expensive just to be expensive. What do I mean by that? Allow me to show you some examples. So, this controller here is the GHL Zen Pro, a controller that features everything that this PowerA controller features. It, however, can sync and be used as an X input or direct input device on your PC at the press of a button. also can be used to sync directly to your Android phone. So if you needed a controller for your phone, this one can do all three of those things. It can be your Switch, your PC, and your phone controller at the exact same price that this one was listed for at the Target that I was going to. I don't know if that's a Target exclusive price, but it's not. Looking at the Lumectra page itself here, you can see this controller is listed for $59.99. $59.99 for this controller. Now the problem with that is, this controller, as you can see, clearly listed for the same price. And it does everything except for the RGB. This has Hall effect sensors, analog triggers, can be used on Windows, Android, Switch, has a very, very, very nice D-pad, has what honestly feel like mechanical switches for the face buttons. So when I was looking for something that was more featured like this controller, that was just a controller, I came across two in my collection that I feel like I could really compare it to. GW Clear Switch Pro controller, this one, and the Cracked Neo S. Now this one, the latter being $49.99, $10 less than the PowerA controller, and this one features analog triggers and Hall effect sensors for your joysticks. So while it lacks the Lumectra system that makes this controller kind of special, it makes up for it with features that I feel are more important and more impactful at a lesser price. So if you want something that has the RGB, is essentially this controller just with less of a featured RGB system, I guess. We've got the GW here. It does light up the entire way around the controller, which it's not synced to my Switch right now, so it's not going to stay on. But you can change that color between any of one of 8 colors. And this is just a bare bones controller. No Hall effect sensors, no motion control or anything like that. It does have HD rumble somehow. But other than that addition of HD rumble, it really doesn't have much else going for it. Kind of like our PowerA controller. But this one, I paid $15 for on clearance. Granted, I believe listed price is $34.99, but that's still $20 cheaper than the PowerA controller. This leaves me in an interesting position because I feel PowerA has really caught my attention with this controller. I can see clear improvement from my first interaction with their devices years ago. You know, on one hand, I found myself enjoying using this controller. Like, I actually had a fun time using this controller, and never once did I think, oh man, I wish I was using something else. But on the other hand, I can't help but feel a little cheated when stepping back and looking at the bigger picture here. So if you were asking for a numbered score based off of this controller by itself, no outside influences at all, I would rate this controller a solid 6 out of 10. The face buttons click nicely. The shoulder buttons are extremely tactile and feel great. I love these. Might be my favorite shoulder buttons on any controller. They legitimately just feel nice. The joysticks, smooth, accurate, great snap to them. They jump straight back to the dead zone. I didn't find my character in Smash Brothers turning around when I would let go of the joystick or anything along those lines. But they're not Hall effect sensors, so the longevity of these joysticks concerns me. The D-pad is honestly pretty bad. Its general shape and its sharp edges around these corners, it makes it really unbearable for long gaming sessions, which I found out during my playthrough of Bloodstained Curse of the Moon. That playthrough, of which, by the way, can be found on the channel and in the description, shameless plug. It's an above average, if ever just slightly pro controller. Smash Brothers was a great test for it, as I find myself disliking the use of pretty much every other third-party Switch Pro controller, including my favorite guy here, the 8-Bit Do Pro 2. I just don't like using third-party controllers for Smash Brothers. For some reason, I've never been able to play as well on a third-party controller And I didn't run into that issue with this. I actually had a fantastic time playing Smash with this controller. Yeah, but then you factor in the price point, and I really feel a little insulted with that asking price. If this controller would have been $49.99, it would have been an easy recommendation from me. But, you know, at $60, there are just too many better alternatives out there for that price. I don't know. So that's about where I'm at. When you factor in that price, I would say this is more of a 4 out of 10 as opposed to a 6. So slightly below average. So, what are your thoughts? Have you had experience using PowerA devices? And if so, were they good? Were they bad? I'm genuinely curious. I love collecting these controllers. So I'd love to hear your stories. Leave them in the comments below and I'll check them out and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. If you've enjoyed this review, please leave us a like. I would greatly appreciate it. If you haven't subbed to the channel and you think that you might like hanging out with us and you like the vibes of this channel, please, we would love to have you. We'd love to see you at some of our live streams. We love hanging out with you guys and chatting. But yeah, this has been Matthew with The Gathering Hall, and thank you for watching. I'll see you all again very, very soon. Have a good night, everyone.